There are moments in our lives that test the core of our faith. And I know for a lot of us, we have our own circumstances that have defined our faith and our journey with God. For me, it was grief. It was grief. The kind that shakes your spirit and the kind that leaves you asking, God, you where? You stop where? You know, I've studied theology, graduated, I've worked, I've preached about faith. But when I faced the reality of what it means to say, yeah, go them stop, even in the most difficult times. Also, I've been through missionary home. I've actually told my mom, and to walk with God is maybe we could say that when I became so programmed into worship and programmed into actually doing all the programs for church, going through everything, being raised in all the departments of the church. At the same time, choosing theology, choosing to study about, to learn more about God, and then eventually becoming a missionary. Going through the loss or the grief of losing a father, and actually stepping out into the field and working as a pastor, working as a minister to God's people in the church. Now, I thought that was enough. I thought that overcoming all the struggles and pain, having a come, I'm still walking with Jesus, was enough to at least justify my faith standing with God when it comes to other trials that come up, or natural trials that come up, that would eventually come my way. But you know what? It didn't work that way. I had to really ask myself a lot of questions, and I realized that I didn't truly know the depth of my faith and my journey with God. I didn't really know. It was probably just head knowledge. And so it was during one of the evenings when we were having our devotion in the house now. That was after coming back from losing a loved one, lost a brother, and God gave me this simple but yet profound inspiration that maybe we can actually measure our faith in a practical way, especially in our homes and as individuals, so that you know where you stand, so you don't just throw yourself out there and think that whenever one challenge come up during the day or during the time that I'm doing my daily chores, I will be able to stand. It doesn't work that way. So I came up with the idea of the faith abacus. So the faith abacus is a tangible and visible tool. It helps individuals and families and even church members measure their walk with God. So not by perfection, but by presence, by reality. So it's a spiritual instrument. I kind of put I put a lot of thought in it, and kind of saw it in a perspective where, suppose, because I depended on all the instances where I saw God's hand. Okay, I depended on all the instances that I saw God's hand in my life, in my father's life, my mother's life, our family's life. Growing up, I've seen the hand of the Lord in a lot of instances, and so I thought that was enough. That was enough to remind me that God am stop. And like Ellen G. White talk, we have nothing to fear unless we forget about how the Lord has led us in the past. And I kind of took that statement literally, in a sense where you are reminded about it every time that really feel the impact that it should have upon your own life. So with the thought, I decided to say that, okay, let's put a mark on everything that happens. Like every instance that happened in our life, you put a mark and you make it become a statement. You make it become a statement in your life, so that it reminds you that this is a stepping stone in my faith journey. So you get to have a literal perspective of what it means to build your faith in God on a daily basis, and it's measured in reality. Okay, it's measured in reality. We also know that the measure of our faith in God also comes with the idea of giving up, offering the tithes back to God and to do the Lord's work at the same time. So this is, we could say that is also a practical tool for families in the house to also practically use as a measure of their faith. So each family member gets to practice what it means to see your faith grow in Christ. So let's just lay down some biblical foundations first. In Romans chapter 12 verses 3, Paul writes, God had dealt to every man the measure of their faith. Each of us has faith, but like muscles, it means that it must be exercised in order for it to grow. So the faith abacus helps you see the growth of your muscle of faith in Christ. So in 2 Corinthians chapter 13 verse 5, Paul also calls to us to examine ourselves whether we be in the faith. But how often do we actually reflect on where our faith is, honestly and deeply? And that's where this tool invites us to do exactly that. In Deuteronomy chapter 6 verse 6 to 7, God tells his people to teach his words diligently to their children, to speak of them at home, on the road, while lying down, and while rising up. So the faith abacus brings that command to life. It brings that command to life in the modern home. So it turns your devotion into a dialogue and theology into practice. Now the spirit of prophecy actually talks about we are to follow on step by step, remembering that God is leading. Some of the principles that supports the faith abacus. We are to speak of the truth in love and let the light shine forth in our good works. So faith is the clasping of the hands of Christ in every emergency. That's what Testimony to the Churches, volume 6, page 400 says. And so he also reminds us in education, the book Education, faith is trusting God, believing that he loves us and knows best. And so the faith abacus is built upon that trust, a symbol of holding God's hand even when the path is unclear. And so me developing this, I developed that simple material that could help each family try to see and measure their faith in God. They measure their faith in God. And so if you look into the idea of an abacus, you have poles, okay? You have poles here, 1, 2, 3, 4, say just 4 poles. You'll see it on the screen as well. You will have those poles will resemble the number of heads in your home. So say if it's the 4 of you, you have the faith abacus, you would have, like, say if there's 4 of you in the family, you as a father or you as a mother and your 2 kids, you will have 4 poles. So with the 4 poles, you will have rings of faith. So the rings of faith will basically whatever you do during the week, when something you work with during the week that you find that it strengthens your faith. At the end of the week, what you will do is you put the rings of faith into your abacus. And so if it's an answered prayer, and one ring going to, so it marks off a moment in your life during the week where God am coming and answering prayer. So you put him ring here go inside. If you face a challenge, but you feel like it am drawing you closer to God, then you put him on the ring can go inside. And so for every person, by Friday, every person would say, come back home, you set up a devotion, and then once you set up a devotion, or every day during the week, you are making progress in the faith abacus. And so every day during the week, you remind your family members, you remind your kids that, okay, the Faith Abacus is here. It's a journey of your faith with God, step by step. Go to school. If you share him something, someone, you feel like, oh, faith, I'm strong on the big man. So it must always have you must justify it with a faith connection with God. You must feel something in order for you to put a ring into the abacus. And so you will see, as you keep fitting rings into the abacus, it should give you that sense of feeling that measure of faith. Your faith level will come to this level, will come to this level. So it encourages you to strengthen, strong in faith blue yet. So you can't just fit in any ring. It has to be an experience where you feel him God in little things as well. But you must always acknowledge that it is God's up inside, which is experience blue. And so you will see that the abacus keeps growing. Faith abacus blue keeps growing. And so there's more to talk about inside Lord Display Faith Abacus. We could run a small training for your church or for your family, individuals. If you want that material for me to give it to you, read, understand it, and implement it. It's going to help our families and help our spiritual journey and our spiritual walk with God. And so faith in what we want and big one is very important. A lot of times we will fall short. And maybe we overestimated or we underestimate. In most cases, for us that you missed up longer time in the Lord Church, we overestimate our faith with God. You may think also we can be able to avoid, and that is resulted in a lot of apostasy in our church, in our churches, experiences that has turned Christians into atheists. It's because you may overestimating faith blaming on them big man and knowledge blaming of thinking that we know him very well, and then we lose sight of our own faith without actually seeing that it doesn't measure up to the challenges that we face. Yes, and so that's just a reminder that I want to leave with you all. Stay blessed and continue to ask the Lord to lead you in your journey of faith.